I I'm Jamal69 Jackson, and I have not posted a video in a while because I am always dissatisfied with my ability to make videos. I can never make anything really high quality because I don't know how. I'm not really what you'd call a real, I guess, video savvy type person. So I'm making this real basic video again, as usual, just to basically talk about something that I know a little bit about by now since I've been playing the game for a while. I know everybody has their own opinions, so I'll say this up front. You might not agree with everything I say, and you may not. It might not work for you the same as it works for me when it comes to some of these vehicles. So if you have a comment about this, or you disagree for some reason, or you have some input to put in, or maybe I forgot to say something or I missed something, please mention it in a comment, and I'd be happy to check it out and reply, and also perhaps take that into account. Uh, but right now I'm going to make a video about the best and worst vehicles that you can have here on GTA 5 Online, and I'm going to give you a brief reason why I think what I think. And so basically, I went through all the websites, so I'm going to pull them up on my phone, and I kind of broke it down. I've been playing this game, like I said, for a while. I've driven just about everything, and enough times to know what kind of works for me and doesn't work for me, and what I think is really great and what I think is really freaking horrible. And so we're gonna start with Elitas. At Elitas, you have a lot of vehicles. By the way, there's some vehicles here I'm not even gonna mention. You won't see me mentioning every single vehicle, but if I don't mention it, it's because I don't particularly think it's horrible, but I also don't think it's fantastic. So it doesn't really meet any of the categories that I'm trying to make here, which is really kind of extremes. And I'm also gonna have some honorable mentions for vehicles that didn't quite make it up to what I would consider a must-have vehicle, but but they're good enough to where if you own it, you got yourself a pretty good vehicle. And basically, I'm breaking it down by cars that, or not cars, but vehicles that you must have, and vehicles that you definitely shouldn't have, and vehicles that are just honorable mentions. And here at Elitas, one of the vehicles that I'm gonna start out with is this Alpha Z71. That is a vehicle you must not have. It is a crappy vehicle. I've flown it in several missions and several things, and I think it's absolutely horrible. It flies, I mean, nothing particularly great, but it's not the best handling vehicle. And from what I've seen so far, it's a little touchy on the controls. It goes all over the place. It's not something you can shoot with or fight with accurately. So, it doesn't come equipped with anything too special or anything that makes it quite the best dogfighter or the best, bomber or anything. So that's one vehicle I think you should avoid is the Alpha C71. The other vehicle that I think you should also avoid would be the Havoc. This vehicle right here is supposed to be the fastest helicopter in game. I've flown it. It is fast. I haven't compared it to the other ones, but landing it is where the problem becomes a little bit aggravating. If you don't land it basically in the straightest, most stable manner, this thing will just flip over on you, and it doesn't take anything to flip it over. If you fly one, you'll see what I'm talking about. And so for that reason, there's other choppers out there that are fast enough, maybe not as fast as this one, but fast enough that you can call up and you can fly on that'll do the job a lot better. The only big thing that is going for this particular chopper is that you can call it in. If you're doing CEO missions, you can call it in as one of your CEO vehicles. But you can also do that with a carbon. So, why not spend the extra money on a carbon if you just gotta have an extra chopper besides a buzzard? And boom, you're taken care of. That one's not all sensitive. It's pretty freaking fast. It's faster than most of the other choppers as well, and it doesn't flip over when you try to land it like the Havoc. So again, avoid the Havoc, in my opinion. The other one right here, most beautiful chopper, at least again my opinion, in the whole game. This is a beautiful, beautiful chopper. I own it. I bought it when it first came out because I was like, wow, what a beautiful chopper. But boy, it's the same thing as this one. You try to land it, and if you're not right on it with centering it and the most stable little platform and all flat surface, and you're on a slight little incline, forget about it. You're gonna be just flipping it sideways and exploding and killing yourself and everybody else in that chopper. So again, I would avoid it. If you just want to buy it for looks, then yeah, that's all it really has going for it. Let's see. Moving on. The Luxors, which are basically this right here. $10 million. Yeah, it's fancy schmancy gold, whatever. The Luxor. Period. Doesn't matter if it's gold, silver, black like this one. Avoid it. It is cool looking as hell. Yeah, it is. and it flies nice and it's fast, but boy, it does not maneuver. It is a pain in the butt to land. It blows up with pretty much anything. Um, it just doesn't do anything that you really want the jet to do other than look nice. And again, to me, if you just want to look nice, I mean, get anything, I guess, but it doesn't serve a purpose for you to go spending your money on something that just looks nice, but there's nothing else than that. That's basically what these two planes do. They do nothing but look nice and don't fly nice, don't land nice, don't do anything else nice. Another one to avoid would be, in my opinion, the Cuban. The Cuban is a plane that it's pretty sturdy. It's not super horrible at takeoffs, no, it's super horrible at landing, but it's very unstable when you fly it. If you hit a bump when you do land it, this thing will fly up into trees, and I don't know. I I mean, you can buy something else, pretty much anything else here, and land it, without difficulties anywhere, and not have to bounce up in the trees or into houses and blow it up. This thing right here is it lands pretty nice only if you have a smooth surface or something that's not really bouncy or too off-roady, but you really can't do it with this vehicle. And this vehicle doesn't fly very great. It's just a horrible handling vehicle. So I would avoid the Cuban. And then the last one would be uh, where is that guy? Right here, the Annihilator. Of course, nowadays, maybe when it first came out, that was the bomb. But right now, this vehicle does nothing other than fly slow and shoots the little machine gun that you can't hit anything with and can't kill anything with. And it's just basically a big target saying, blow me up with a rocket launcher. And in fact, I blow people up with the rocket launcher on these things all the time when I catch them on them. So, yeah, I wouldn't buy this. The only cool thing about this vehicle, I have to say, is the landing. It's got the softest, coolest, like, Cadillac landing for a helicopter. But, I mean, you're not gonna be Cadillac landing when somebody blows you up in the air because you can't do shit with it, basically. So yeah, so avoid that chopper. Now I'm gonna be going over to the ones that you should own, which is basically going to be these guys right here. There they are. If you want to spend the money and you've got the money and you want a fast, smooth chopper, Super Volito. I mean, Super Volitos are the bomb. I've got one of these Super Volito carbons. Um, I don't hardly ever use it, but when I do, I have no complaints. It's fast, it handles great, it lands great, and it's just a great vehicle to have. And if you buy a yacht, on one of the yachts like the Aquarius, which is the one I have, you get one of these. So hey, it already comes on there. You can't summon it up, but if you own one personally, you can summon it up on CEO just like you can the Buzzard and the Havoc there, which I don't like. At least I don't like the landing ability. Everything else I like about the Havoc, just not that. And the little machine guns, of course, are worthless. But these things right here are worth it if you do go ahead and buy them. Like I said, you may not use them a lot. They may not apply to you. They may not be worth your money. But if it's something that does apply to you and that you do buy, these things will perform very well for you. Very great vehicles. The other ones that you can also buy and you really depend on in any kind of weather and any kind of landing pretty much, and you can carry people in them, is these Velum. Like the Velum 5-seater right here, and the one that's at the bottom over here, which is going to be, where are you guys? There you are, the regular Velum. These guys right here, they're solid. They take a pretty decent beating. They fly great. They maneuver great. They land great. I mean, these things right here are just very solid, basic planes. If you want to buy one of these, I mean, look at the price: $450,000 for that one, and $995 for this one with the 5-seater. It's a little bit more expensive, but if you just want a basic plane that just all around carries people and at the same time handles great, that's your plane if you want to go get a really high quality, aircraft. And then if you want to go stunting around and flying and doing crazy stuff, the Mallard. I like the Mallard. I know there's other ones out there, that are pretty well handling, and some other ones that are also, jet propelled, and this one's not. But this one right here, I think is probably one of the sweetest handling planes in the game, as far as you being able to fly it under bridges without, feeling like you're out of control and doing loops and twirls and everything. This thing right here, if you just want to fly around and enjoy flying, this is your vehicle right here. And then for an honorable mention, I have this guy next to it, which is the Frogger. The Frogger's a pretty good all-around chopper. Again, handles great. Landing is a little bit touchier than some of the other choppers, but not as touchy, so it's actually still very decent to land. And one of the coolest things I do like about this vehicle, and the reason that it gets an honorable mention, is the tail rotor right here is protected. A lot of times if you land with another one of these choppers and your rotor accidentally rubs against a bush, a wall, a pole, whatever, it breaks, your chopper's done for. This guy right here is protected, so you don't have that problem. And so I really like that about the Frogger. And now moving on to the next sales spot, which is going to be war stock. We're going to be talking about war stocks here now. We're going to be starting again with the do not haves, vehicles that you should avoid. One of the first ones I would put on that list, which I've already passed it, I guess. Where did it go? There it is, the Tula. Really cool concept, I have to say. It has the helicopter type of ability and the plane flying and the bombs and blah 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 whatever. It's a pain in the butt to try to operate all that, especially if you're flying it on your own. You pretty much can't even do some of the things it does. It flies very slow. I know it takes a few hits to blow it up, so it's pretty resistant, but it's not a vehicle I'd recommend. It's too much of a hassle. If you got a bunch of people on it, I guess it's kind of cool. Otherwise, I would just avoid it. I don't absolutely hate it, but I would say it's one of the vehicles to avoid, especially if you're on your own. You can't do much with it. The other one is the same kind of thing as the Bambushka. Where is the Bambushka guy? There he is right here. The Bambushka is expensive, slow, super difficult to handle. I don't find it that it's very easy to kill people with it because it's so slow. People can outrun you in a Fagio probably, running around on the ground, outrunning you in a Fagio because you're in a Bambushka trying to catch up to him. And so I would just kind of avoid this plane altogether. I thought about getting it because it looked like it was going to be pretty much the bomb or the Bambushka, but it really wasn't. I've flown it. I've been attacked by it. I've killed a couple of them very easily, actually more easily than I thought it would be. And so, yeah, I would avoid this vehicle right here. It's not really worth it, in my opinion, from what I've seen, both from being on the bombing side and on the being bombed side of it. And it didn't even, do really much of anything. And so I would avoid it. And the other one I would avoid would be this guy right here, the Ardent. I think this is a vehicle that came out and everyone was expecting a lot from it, and it just did not do much. It is absolutely a horrible vehicle. It drives slow. It handles poorly. The modifications on it are really lame, and everybody was hoping it would be, an underwater sort of submarine-ish vehicle, and it was not. You put it in the water, it's done for. There's really no lethality to it. It's absolutely horrendous. So I think this is one of the biggest vehicles that, in my opinion, are a letdown in this game, and definitely one of my least favorite vehicles for that reason. Although the car is beautiful, but it's a Lotus Esprit, but it doesn't do what you pay for it, basically. And so no, I would avoid this vehicle. Absolutely avoid it. And the next vehicle I would avoid would be this Dune. I bought the Dune for one of my characters. I've got two characters, and yeah, it handles nice. I mean, it's got a nice machine gun up at front. It's fast enough, but the only thing is, it doesn't do anything particularly better than some other vehicles. And you're totally uncovered, so you're basically being shot at from every direction. And when you're doing missions, even, gosh, it's just everything shoots at you and hits you because you're so wide open. So I would avoid this vehicle for the price, especially even though it's on sale right now. I don't think it's really worth that price. Even on sale, I don't think it's worth that price. Another one I would avoid, and now this one goes into a whole other classification of vehicle, because I'm going to tell you vehicles that I basically don't recommend, and I just don't think they're great, and I don't hate them necessarily. Like the Dune, I don't hate it. But this vehicle right here, this right here, is a piece of crap that I absolutely hate. The technical, actually, we're talking about the technical when you also take it up and you get it armored up. This one now you can take it to your MOC, and convert it into this armored thing, which I don't even know why the armor's there. It helps for nothing. Anything and everything shoots at you right through those windows. It doesn't really take too much to blow it up. The guy that's on the back on the turret, machine gun there, gets taken out super easily. The vehicle drives like crap. It handles so poorly. It flips over every minute over anything. It gets caught on everything. It oversteers. It understeers. It just does everything wrong. So this is one of the vehicles that I'm gonna take it, like I said, to another level and say, don't just avoid it. Don't even pretend it doesn't exist. Pretend it's not in your website. Don't even look at it. It's absolutely worthless. Do not get this vehicle. Do not spend a dime on anything that has to do with the technical, especially the armored version. Now, again, I know some of you, maybe you have a great time on this thing, and for you it works fantastically. But again, I'm gonna speak from my experience and from experience I've seen from other people, and the overall I guess effect that I get from this thing, just from all that put together, is that it's absolutely worthless. I think most people will agree with me. This thing right here is one of the worst vehicles ever on GTA 5 Online. So this is one of the ones that definitely should stay away from at all costs. I despise that vehicle. The other one right here that I don't really particularly like, I know some people have a lot of fun on it and it does some cool stuff because it's got a rocket attached to it, and that's gonna be that rocket Voltic, which I'm having trouble finding here. Should be here. There it is. This guy right here, I think you're paying a lot of money for a car that doesn't really do a lot of it and goes really fast and crashes into things really fast because it doesn't handle very well. And yeah, if you ramp it, it flies for a while. It's pretty cool. But now you got a Batmobile. Batmobile, it's kind of cooler. You know, it doesn't handle that great either, but you know, I don't know. For the price, I just don't see that the Voltic is really worth what it does. Don't absolutely hate it. I have it. I mean, I enjoy it for some things, but again, I think it doesn't put out the value that you're getting out of it. I don't think it's worth really what you're paying. And so another one, let's go on to the Brickade. The Brickade is not worth it either. I mean, I got a Brickade. It's like trying to drive a bar of soap. You know, it doesn't do anything. It just kind of slides around, crashes into everything. It doesn't take anything for anybody to kill you on this or to blow you up. So absolutely, really not a good vehicle. Don't know. It looks tough. It isn't tough at all. It crashes into cars and bumps them out of the way, and even doesn't do that well either. Another one that's not very good would be this guy right here, the Mule. You have the Mule, and I believe there's another Mule, isn't there? Yeah, there's another one. Anything that's Mule. Why is that even on Warstock? Those things right there, again, it's if you think that you're driving a UPS truck in a city that everybody's trying to kill you, it's a good idea, then go ahead and buy a mule. You know, knock yourself out and go drive the mule around town and see how often you get blown up doing that. The mule, worthless vehicle. I don't know what it does other than drive slow and get you killed. And so the other one is the box build. The regular box build, again, same thing, same difference as driving a mule. If you want to drive around and be like, everybody's little target and everybody catches up with you with a Faggio again, some little Faggio, then that's the vehicle you want to be in to get blown up and killed and caught up with basically anything even on a bike probably. Another vehicle again that you also want to avoid, and I have this vehicle and it's beautiful. I think it's worth owning if you kind of just kind of dig it, but it doesn't really do much. It's not a great off-road vehicle. It really doesn't do much other than look pretty good, and I have it just for the fact that it's the only six-wheeler car in the game, or Jeep in the game. Not the only six-wheel vehicle, but the only six-wheel Jeep. It is pretty freaking cool, and it's based on that 6x6 Mercedes AMG vehicle. It's pretty cool, but again, it turns horribly, it climbs horribly, it just handles horribly on road and off road. I wouldn't recommend it. I have it. I don't regret having got it because I kind of like how original it is, but if you don't really have the money or you got better things to spend your money on, definitely don't spend it on a Dubsta 6x6. Okay, the next vehicle is going to be the Crusader, which is this one right here. This Jeep right here, you could get a Mesa and get the same thing done. Actually, the Mesa is probably better than this. I don't even know. I know the military people drive it like it's the best vehicle in the world because I guess the computers are aligned to make them drive that good on it. But if you go try to do the same thing with that thing on your own, it ain't gonna work. It's a very bad vehicle, really, overall. I don't really recommend you getting it because there's just so many better things for off-roading and for jeeping around. And the last vehicle that I don't recommend would be this, and this is right here again, one of the ones that is not just on the dislike list, it's on the hate list. Why would you buy this? It's only $15,000. I would rather use $15,000 as toilet paper. I absolutely do not know why anybody in their right mind would buy one of these. It doesn't look good. It doesn't do anything good except get you killed again. So why is this on Warstock Cash and Carry? I have no idea. But if getting killed by everybody and looking ridiculous, kind of like a hobo around GTA, then that's your thing, get one. But otherwise, I can think of a million reasons to tell you not to get one. But I mean, I don't have a million minutes to tell you about them. But yeah, I would say don't buy this vehicle. And now we're going to go to the ones that you should buy, which is going to be, of course, starting off at the top, the Mobile Operations Center. The Mobile Operations Center is a beast. Super difficult to drive around town, but if you park it in the right place, the thing's so near indestructible, and it's it's a little death machine. So anybody gets near you is just gonna get pretty much destroyed if you got a friend in there, especially. And not only that, but the main reason you should have it is because you can't do a lot of things with it, especially if you have a bunker. So you kind of need this if you wanted a bunker, if you got a bunker. So it's a must-have. especially for that reason. Any of you that's been working with a bunker knows this. You gotta have the vehicle, and so that's why it's a must-have. The other one is, I said it's a must-have. It's a Vigilante, and again, there's a lot of things I don't like about the vehicle. It handles poorly. It's easy to get it, into trouble, land it into water or something. You have to pay $20,000 because you destroyed it. It doesn't do a lot of things well. It doesn't take, much to destroy it or much to kill you through the windows. But the cool thing is kind of like the rocket function out of it. It is pretty neat. It turns this car or this vehicle into like a ramming hammer. That's pretty neat. If you can use that thing kind of on straightaways or on the ramps that you kind of know how to handle, man, this thing is fun. So I would recommend it just because the fact that it's kind of a very unique vehicle in its functionality and very unique, of course, in its looks. And just, it's like a Batmobile. It's pretty freaking neat. So I would say it's a must-have for those of you that can really, I guess put in the extra money and afford it. Otherwise, there's better things to spend your money on. But, if you got the money and you want to spend it, I think it's definitely something you should have. Another one would be the Rogue, which is this guy right here. If you know how to fly planes and you know how to dogfight, this thing's a dogfighting beast. And not only that, but it's also the fastest plane. No, one of the fastest planes in the game. Not the fastest, second, I believe. Second fastest in the game. And you can carry a passenger with it. This is a very good dogfighting vehicle, and it's decently effective, I guess, against ground targets. Not the best, but I'd say it's a good vehicle to have. The other one would be right here, the Molotov. That's another pretty neat vehicle. I would say it's a must-have if you got the money again and if you want to spend on it. It's not that bad of a vehicle. It's pretty well handling, nimble, fast enough. I suppose again there's better vehicles or better aircraft, but this is a pretty neat little one to have. Another one that you should have is the Night Shark. The Night Shark, why? It doesn't really do anything as far as being able to attack people. You can't pull your weapons on it if you put armored windows. You can't like pull your gun and shoot out. There's also some really big drawbacks to it. But the thing handles so well and it's so fast. It's just like, I don't know how to describe this thing. It's freaking awesome, and it rams things out of the way, and it's very protective of you as far as I think it's a little hard to get killed on this thing. If it's especially somebody on land, maybe somebody in an aircraft would be more likely to be able to do it. But this thing handles so well and so fast, you can actually try to stay away from race cars and things like that, supercars. It's a pretty freaking awesome vehicle. I like it a lot, even though it doesn't do much other than protect and drive very well. The other vehicle you should definitely get is the APC. If you haven't been one of these, you're missing out. This thing right here takes a licking and keeps on ticking. It floats in the water. It is the best climbing off-road vehicle in the whole game. It goes through things that other vehicles only dream of doing. It can carry your all your whole crew in there, just about. You can carry, I believe, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people in here. This thing right here, you can be in it by yourself and use the guns. You can't move and shoot at the same time, but you can actually switch to your guns or to your rockets and kill people. I've done that several times already. And the only thing you have to do with this vehicle, I have to say, giving my little private tips right here. I hope not a lot of people get this information that are gonna come attack me. But if you want to kill somebody in this, don't drive forward. Always drive in reverse, and they simply cannot kill you. It's so difficult, and you can blow them up and while they're trying to kill you and be done with it. But if you drive forward, the windows are not bullet resistant, and they will go in and kill you. So that's the only way they can really kill you in this thing. So when I go out and attack people and I have my crew in there, we always go in reverse, and that's the way to get it done with this thing. The other must-have vehicle, and pretty much I'd say just about everybody agrees with this one because so many people have it and so many people love this vehicle, is the Oppressor, which I am looking for and I cannot find. There it is right there. This bike right here. I'm not good with bikes. I never have been on the game. In real life I am, but not in the game. If you're good with a bike, unlike me, and you know how to handle this thing, I've seen people do things that are just amazing with this. This thing right here is nearly unstoppable when you know how to use it. So this is one of the absolute must-have vehicles. This is on another level of things. So was the APC, by the way. The APC is on another level of must-haves. It is on the must-absolute-have list of vehicles, for my opinion, and so is the Oppressor. Those are vehicles that, if you don't own it, even if you don't know how to drive it, you should try to own it and try to get good at it. Because these things right here, both of them, absolute beasts. You should definitely take the time to save for one and own one. Another vehicle would be the Insurgent Pickup. The Insurgent Pickup is another vehicle that, in my opinion, is an absolute must-have. This thing's been around for a while. It's been a part of many wars. It is a proven vehicle. It is fast. It doesn't protect you now as far as the windows, but if you know how to use this thing, if you know what you're doing, you can cause a lot of havoc with it. You can take your crew in there. You got that top mounted 50 caliber. It is a fantastic weapon of war, and so I highly recommend that you buy it if you don't have it, and that's definitely a must, absolute have vehicle. Another vehicle that you should consider having is the, believe it or not, armored boxville. Never thought I'd be saying this, but I own one, and I have to say this thing can take a licking as well. It's kind of like the Insurgent. It's not as fast, it doesn't handle as well, but it does ram cars out of the way, which is something the Insurgent can't truly do, and not like this guy can at least. And so that gives it a slight different ability than the Insurgent. But like I said, this vehicle can take a lot of damage, and it can also dish out a lot of damage, and it handles pretty decently considering that you're driving this boxville. That's not like a regular boxville at all. Highly recommend the vehicle. Another vehicle that this is the most unexpected recommendation that I would think I'd be making today, and that's the Wastelander. I never thought I'd recommend this vehicle as a must-have because when I first saw it, I was like, I'm not buying that thing. That's just, what the heck is that for? So what it's for? Both of these vehicles, first of all, open up missions for you on some of the easiest and best money-making missions when you're doing CEO. First of all, that's one thing you get out of both of these vehicles, both the Armored Boxville and the Wastelander. Another thing too, this guy right here can go through a lot of terrain that is just really tough for a lot of the vehicles to go over, and this thing will do it. Especially in reverse. If you get stuck, go in reverse, then it'll get out of it. And forward, it has some limitations, but in reverse, it goes just about over just about any little wall that's about the size of the tire to the bumper, so it just does it. But one of the coolest things about this vehicle is you can take it in the water, pretty deep water, as long as you do not cover the rooftop. Once that rooftop gets slightly covered with water, your vehicle is done for. But as long as you're just an inch below that roof line, your vehicle, your face will be under the water, and you'll still be driving this vehicle underwater, and it doesn't stop it. So it's pretty neat. That's one of the coolest attractive features of this vehicle. Besides like I said, the fact that it opens up some of those missions on CEO, which are pretty neat as well. Or one of those missions on CEO that's pretty neat, just like the Boxville mission. Pretty good missions, a lot of money on those. Definitely worth getting the vehicle. Both of them. Okay, another vehicle I'd recommend getting, of course, is going to be the Ruiner 2000. A lot of people want this vehicle, but not a lot of people have it because it's very expensive. I have the vehicle. In fact, I have two of almost every single vehicle because I have two characters, so I buy the must-have vehicles. I buy them for them. And this is one of the vehicles that I have to say it's pretty much, I think, a must-have. It's a very cool vehicle in what it can do about parachuting, jumping over barriers, and it has the lock-on missiles. I mean, and it drives, okay. It's not the best driving vehicle. That's about the only drawback to it, but it also doesn't take a lot to blow it up, and the windows are not bulletproof, but it's a killing machine. And I'd say if you know how to use this thing, which I've seen people that do know how to use this thing really well, oh man, it's kind of scary to see these things running around. So definitely I recommend getting a Ruiner 2000. The other vehicles I'd recommend are cargo bobs. Cargo bobs, every now and then, when you're doing certain missions, not really against other players, but against missions from the game, this thing will come in very very handy, especially when you're doing a lot of those stealing vehicle missions. A lot of times, you have players kind of messing with you, or you want to avoid driving through certain areas, or you got those AI enemy, coming after you. Believe it or not, this thing, you can just lift up your car in the air, and as long as there's no choppers coming after you, or you don't have live players with choppers coming after you, it kind of just does away with being, shot at or shot down and getting to your, to the delivery in time. It's kind of neat to have one of the cargo bobs. They do come in handy for certain things, and that's why I think it's a must-have vehicle. Because when you can't call it in for certain things, you'll be glad that you have it. And moving along to the next vehicle, which is just the regular Insurgent. Regular Insurgent is just like the third Insurgent. To me, it's an absolute must-have vehicle. I know it doesn't have any guns or weaponry on it, but it could take a beating just like the truck can. It's a little bit faster, better handling the truck, and you can also shoot out the windows, at people if they to defend yourself, and it's just one of the best off-road vehicles all around. Once you fully mod this vehicle out at the Los Santos Body Shop, this thing's a beast. It's very fast. It handles super great. You can even drift with this thing. It's amazing what this thing can do. So this is one of the top vehicles that you should really own on GTA. I know a lot of you may not agree, but that's my opinion on this particular vehicle. And then another one that you should own, particularly if you're good with it, that's the Hydra. We've all seen Hydras and what they can do and what people with Hydras can do. They can just go, you know, absolutely smashing a session and just not even be touched. I mean, only another person that's better than them in another Hydra kind of can beat them, or in another plane, one of the new planes. Otherwise, once you're in a Hydra, you can grief a session all day long and nobody can do anything about it almost. I've taken down Hydras before. It's so difficult. If there's one thing I despise, it's a Hydra. It's the only thing I really fear in the game is a Hydra. Don't fear much else except the Hydras. Because once you get a good pilot on this thing, which unfortunately I'm not, it's almost an unstoppable thing. So it's an absolute must-have vehicle, especially if you're good with this vehicle. The Hydra is perhaps the most destructive beast in the entire game. And the last one, and this is my favorite, absolute favorite vehicle to use, an absolute favorite vehicle to have, and the one that makes me the money, that gets me away from bad guys, that does everything for me, is basically the Buzzard. This to me is an absolute must-have. You can call it in from your CEO. It's got defenses, to it. You can carry a group of people with you, 4 people in total with you. It's fast. It's very, very maneuverable. It does take, a nice beating before it goes bad. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket. One rocket will bring it down, but it's a hell of a thing. That's about your only danger, or other aircraft, or you get too close to people, that they can shoot you down. Otherwise, there ain't nobody catching up with you. Ain't nobody messing with you with this thing, if you know how to use it. Which this is what I'm the expert at the chopper. So this right here for me, this is my livelihood in the game. And so I'd recommend that if you don't have one, definitely get one. If you do CEO missions, absolutely get one. And if you're not good with a chopper, then this is the one to learn on, because this is probably the best handling overall, best landing, and speed chopper in the game. And now for some honorable mentions for the Warstock Cash and Carry. One is going to be the new one right here, the P45 Nakota. I haven't used it really that much yet to know enough about it, but from what I've seen, this thing is a dogfighting beast. I don't think it's that great against ground targets compared to, like, let's say, the Hydra, but I think it has the ability to be one. But dogfighting wise, this is a hell of a plane. I think it handles well. It's a really cool vehicle, and I really recommend that if you don't have one, you should definitely consider perhaps getting one. I haven't bought any of the new any of the new planes because I'm not into any of them. But again, if that's your thing, planes are your thing, then you might find it a little more useful than me. The other one gets an honorable mentions, the Pyro. This is another good fighting beast, good for especially dogfights in my opinion. And this is actually the fastest plane in the whole game. So it'll get you from point A to point B faster than anything else, considerably faster than anything else. And so, aside from the fact that it's very maneuverable, it lands. Oh my God, does that thing land crazy? You can land that thing just about anywhere. It lands very softly, very shortly, very steadily. Very great landing vehicle. The other one that gets an honorable mention is gonna be the half track. The half track's pretty neat. The guns that it has in the back, once you upgrade, oh my God, they're pretty freaking cool. And it protects you once you armor it up. It actually does protect you, unlike the APC. I mean unlike the what do you call that freaking thing? I hate, the technical. That thing does not protect you against the freaking BB gun. This thing will protect you for real. And it's got some covers that also protect your shooter in the back. Again, unlike the technical, this is definitely a vehicle you can consider owning. It's worth it. The other vehicle that's also an honorable mention is going to be the weaponized Tampa, because it has very destructive capabilities, especially when it's armored up. It's not easy to get killed in it, at least not with gunfire, and it can dish out a lot of damage. It doesn't handle the greatest. That's about the only drawback, and the fact that it doesn't take a lot to blow it up. But it has mines, rockets, machine guns. Oh my God, this thing's a beast. and it's not the most destructive thing in the world, even in spite of all that. But I'd say it's definitely something you can consider owning because it's worth it. The other vehicle that I think is worth considering, even though there's not much you can do with it but have fun, and that's the ramp buggy. It's easy to get killed in it, blown up in it, everything. It's not a very protective vehicle, but it is so much fun. You can go flipping cars up in the air, feet up in the air. I mean, you'll see them. It seems like 30 feet up in the air. And if you just want to go have fun bumping cars out of the way, uh, this is the thing. It's one of the funnest vehicles in the game, absolutely. Another vehicle that's semi equal to the ramp buggy would be this guy right here, which is another vehicle I think it's deserves an honorable mention, and that's the Wedge. The Wedge is very poor handling, but it is fast and it rams the heck out of everything. It moves big trucks, small vehicles, of course. Anything it hits with that big cone, it's moving out of the way. Because it's moving out of the way. At least anything that's vehicles, other vehicles. It is an absolute beast on the road, and so I'd recommend that one right there as well as something you can consider owning. Another vehicle I also recommend, actually I'm going the wrong way, is this guy right here. The turreted limo. It has very limited protective abilities. It does have bulletproof, not bulletproof, but bullet resistant glass. It can take one explosion and it'll blow up on the second explosion, but it's got that minigun on top and it can carry a pretty decent amount of people in there. Man, you can really bring this thing to a party, and if you know how to use it and drive this thing around, and the guy that's on top knows how to shoot, you can really do some nasty damage. So it's worth it. It's not one of the best, but it's something I can give it an honorable mention. Two other things I can honorable mention is the Valkyrie. The Valkyrie, unfortunately, if you're the pilot, you can't do anything. So you need a crew with that one. That is the worst thing to me about the Valkyrie. But if you got a crew in that, and the guy that is flying knows how to fly, and you got some good shooters, man, this thing can destroy a lot of things. So it's an honorable mention. Just as is the Savage. The Savage is a single. You can have it on single flyer, and you can do a lot of damage because it has very good rockets, and it's got the machine guns. Those explosive rounds, just like the Hydra. So this is basically sort of like the Hydra, but in a chopper version, and so it is a pretty cool vehicle. Even though it does take damage very quickly, and it can go down pretty, relatively quickly. But if you're pretty decent with this thing, even though it flies a little bit slow as well, you can do pretty good damage with it. So I'd recommend it again as something you can consider. Another vehicle I think you can consider owning, and it's a good vehicle mostly for protective purposes because it doesn't really do much else. Um, it looks cool as hell. It buys you some time, I guess, if you're getting shot at, and that's going to be there. It is the Duke of Death. It's not that expensive right now too. It's on sale, but the thing looks mean. It's kind of a rare vehicle to see out there. People have been looking forward to having this vehicle for a long time, and so this is a vehicle you can definitely consider. It's a cool vehicle. I've tried to kill people in these things before, and actually they have managed to get away from me. So it has the ability to do that. It's pretty neat that it has that ability. So that's why it's something you can consider. Another vehicle you can consider, of course, is this thing right here. This thing, some people are really good at destroying these things, but for the most part, you see people, they see these things and they kind of run away. These things are not that hard to destroy, especially once you get chased down by cops and you're killing other people right away. The cops will do the job for the guy you're trying to kill. It's not so much the other players, but the game itself that will mess up your tank. But the tank itself is pretty freaking deadly, and it's pretty freaking cool. It's not very good at going over a lot of obstacles and over a lot of terrain, but if you keep it on the roads and you know how to drive and fire this thing, you can do a lot of damage. So it's something, again, that you can consider. And the last one that's, I think, something to mention is this thing right here, the dump. This huge thing. It's just, I don't know, it's a beast. It's kind of a fun vehicle to drive around. It goes over everything. It rams pretty much everything out of the way. And I just mentioned it honorably on an honorable mention because it is a very unique vehicle. There's nothing else that big around in the game, and it's really kind of fun. It's really fun. It doesn't do much other than provide some kind of crazy, running over everything, smashing into everything, and being in this huge Tonka toy thing. Kind of fun. That's all it really does. But I mentioned it, for that reason. And now, moving on to the next thing, which is going to be Benny's. And this one's going to be shorter. Thank goodness, because I've been on this video for a long time. And so Benny's, let's go in here and see what's going on with the stock. For Benny's, there's really not a lot that I can mention as far as must-haves. There's only one I think must-have in this vehicle, and that is the True Fate Nero. And that's because if you race, this is a great vehicle, perhaps one of the best. If you know how to drive this car, this thing's a beast at driving. It handles well, it goes fast, it's super cool, and it looks super nice once you Benny it up. Um, I can tell you vehicles that you cannot have, or you cannot have. Not that you cannot have, but that you shouldn't have. You can have anything you want, right? But I don't know why you would buy this thing. The Vapid minivan. I've seen so many people. I think they go back to the hood days, or I don't know what it is, but they're attracted to these minivans, and I just don't get it. They don't handle well. I don't know how many times I've been attacked by guys on minivans, and they have not lived to tell the story. So that minivan and the Class Moonbeam as well. Again, same thing. Don't know why you'd get one unless you just want to get killed by everything. So I would stay away from those right there. Absolutely. The other vehicle that I stay away from also, and I own one. I actually own one or two. I don't know. I think I only own one. Thank goodness. But it's the Class Tornado. It costs a lot to make it into a Benny's car, and at the end it doesn't look that great. It doesn't drive that great. I just don't think it's worth it. Uh, it's a car I could definitely sell. Consider selling if one day I need the money or I just need space. But I'm not crazy about the Class Tornado. And the only honorable mention I can really give these guys here for the Bennies would be the where is that guy at? The Albany Buccaneer. There it is, the Buccaneer. I mean, this thing looks nice once you finish it. It's a cool lowrider. And you can find it free around the streets of San Andreas. You don't have to buy it for $29,000 and just go take it to Benny's. Take it to your garage, take it to Benny's, and you got yourself a very cool lowrider. It's very cool. The Albany looks pretty nice once it's finished. So that's definitely one I can consider as one I can give an honorable mention to. And the other one is this guy here, the Free Annis Elegy. Once you turn that into an Elegy Retro Custom, it's a whole other thing. It's like one of those Japanese what do they call those cars? God, my brother owns one and I cannot remember. The GTRs. It's freaking cool, man. It looks really cool. It drives pretty nice, and not to mention that if you do car dupes and you got one of these GTR or these LG Retros, that's the car that you can sell for the most money if you got one fully upgraded. So that's another kind of cool reason, I guess, for some people to have one of these. Other than that, it looks great. It's a fantastic car, and you start off getting it for free. So that's definitely an honorable mention there. Now we're gonna move on to dog tees. I know it's a long video, but I'm really trying to be thorough about the vehicles and kind of give explanations as to why they're worth it or not worth it. And here, the must-haves are the Kraken. To me, you must have. Why? Because it's the only submarine. I mean, once you go down in the water, nothing can blow you up, nothing can touch you. You're kind of just down there, alone. You're left alone. It's kind of neat. You can see the parts of the world you really cannot see unless you have this. So that's why I think it's a must-have. You cannot explore in any other way the underwater ocean unless you have rebreathers. But yeah, eventually you're gonna have to come up with this thing. You can just stay down there unless you reach its maximum crush depth, which is really hard to reach anyway. But the thing is really freaking cool. Another vehicle that is definitely worth having is the dinghy. It carries a crew. It is fast. It is maneuverable. That thing is awesome. It's almost like one of those Navy SEAL type boats, and I guess they made it look that way on purpose. It's really freaking cool, man. That thing it's one of the fastest marine vehicles in the game, if not the fastest. I'm not sure if there's anything faster than that thing, but that thing's pretty fast. I know those sea sharks that come with the Aquarius yacht are really fast, but I've never put them toe to toe. I know the Aquarius I have also comes with a Toro. And I've put these two toe to toe, and it beats the Toro. So it's faster than the Toro, and the Toro is a lot more expensive. For the price that you're getting it for, I mean, for goodness sake, the thing is amazing. It's definitely worth it, and that's why it is a must absolutely have vehicle in the game, because it gives you a lot for the price that you're paying for it. And then, let's see, where's the other one? Oh, the other must have, the Galaxy Super Yachts. It doesn't matter which one you get. They all have their pros and their cons. Some have less landing, those little helipads. Some have less landing helipads, which is the cheapest one, which is going to be the Pisces. The other two have two. This yacht makes it a little more uh, easier to access certain parts. The Orion does versus the Aquarius, where it's kind of cumbersome to run around and not be able to access certain parts easily. But if you're doing piracy preventions and you got a yacht that's easier to access or to get into, that makes it also easier for the enemy to do it. So for me, the Aquarius, that's why I like it. Not only is it the most pimp one, the biggest one, uh, but it's also a little bit difficult for the enemy to attack, and it's a little bit easier to defend. And that's why I choose the Aquarius as far as my favorite one. But again, that depends on your budget. If you don't have the money, some people opt to go downgrade to one of these guys. But if you can save up the money for an Aquarius and that's what you want, definitely recommend you getting a yacht. But it doesn't really matter which yacht you get. I think all of them are worth it. Somebody said that they're not worth the money, but to me they are. Um, I'll probably never make the money up from doing those piracy missions that I spent on it. But it's just fun to have, man. You can have some pretty unique little parties up there, and you can get away kind of from the world up there. And if you have a wanted level, you can kind of just chill out there, and anybody come at you, you can snipe them out of the beach real easy. You can just get into your yacht, or you can blow up anybody coming at you in the chopper. I mean, it's kind of neat. It's a pretty neat little thing to have. So I'd highly recommend you get a yacht if you don't have one. I'm sorry, I guess I'm getting a little sick here, and I keep getting my throat kind of like congested or something. But anyway, let's move along to the next place, which is going to be Legendary Motorsports. And this one right here is kind of more extensive than I thought it was going to be. So I'm going to go again by the vehicles that you shouldn't own, or you shouldn't consider buying. Not that you shouldn't own, again, I keep saying that wrong. You shouldn't really consider buying. One of the ones I would say is the Ocelot Lynx. I don't really know why it's so expensive because I don't really know what it does. I have one. It doesn't handle great. It's not super fast. It just costs a lot of money. So again, I don't hate the car. I don't think it's the ugliest car. The modifications on it don't make it look that great either when you're done with it. I just don't know why the price is as high as it is for this particular vehicle. I have no comprehension of why. And so I wouldn't recommend you getting one. The other one is right next to it, which is the Emperor ETR1. Again, very expensive, very good looking car. It gets beaten by just about everything out there. It just beats it. I don't get this car is actually pretty slow even after fully modding it, considering the price that you pay for it. And it doesn't handle that great either. So I don't know what's the big deal about it. This is another one I would not recommend. Project Tire is super expensive. I own this car as well, and I think I own two of them in fact. But this thing right here, it's pretty, man. You take it in your garage, it looks pretty nice. But I swear it kind of just spins around in place. It spins out of control, and it also is just kind of I don't know. It doesn't handle very well when you're taking it like in the races and stuff like that. It's really easy to get it airborne and lose control out of it. I just don't think it's worth it. Maybe some of you out there can handle this car, but for me, I just not been able to handle the car. It's a little bit maybe too much car for me at least then. And so moving along, definitely don't recommend that vehicle in any case. Where are you? Another vehicle that I don't recommend, or vehicles that I don't recommend, are both of these guys right here. The Albany, the Roosevelt Valor, and the regular Roosevelt. Why? Yeah, they're gorgeous. They're beautiful. They take you back to the 20s or whatever, and they give you that. If you're into the classic cars, yeah, you probably own it because it's a classic car and it's pretty. But that's all it is. As far as like braking, steering, speed, they're horrible. I mean, if you go out in one of these things, all you're doing is asking to get destroyed along with your Albany. So again, I don't recommend it. Another vehicle that I don't recommend, and this is one of the ones that's going to go to the next level, which absolutely despise this vehicle, is this one, believe it or not. Why would I despise this beautiful, absolutely gorgeous car? Why? Well, because it's one of the worst handling cars in the game. I've driven it several times. I've had many friends that owned it, and they all say the same thing. It's crap. Why? Because anytime you try to take off in this vehicle, it will spin and spin and spin, and you're like 2 hours later, and there it is. You're still spinning. You haven't gone anywhere. So basically, all you're doing is you're spending a lot of energy, making a lot of noise, but not really doing anything. It's very difficult to control, very difficult to maneuver. It doesn't drive great anywhere, and if you're trying to get away from anyone and you're at a standstill, good luck. You're dead because you're gonna be spinning in place while they're shooting at you. And so, yeah, the vehicle's horrible, absolutely horrible. Too bad they made it handle like that, because other than that, I would own the vehicle if it wasn't because of the fact that it handles so poorly. But aside from that, it is an absolutely gorgeous vehicle. I have to give it. That's the only thing I can give it. It's gorgeous. Too bad it has nothing to really back it up. To kind of, or not back it up, but to complement it. Nothing, no other qualities that complement it other than good looks. And so, what's another vehicle I don't recommend? That would be the D-Class Mamba, which is right here, right on the bottom here. Why? It's basically the same thing as a Nightshade, just about exactly the same thing, except you pay more money for it and you get a little bit less spin. And the driving characteristics once it gets going are about the same, which is really poor. So basically, again, you're getting a kind of a neat classic that doesn't really live up to expectations when it comes to handling. And I know the people that love the classics just have to have it, but that's okay. That's your thing. But I would say it's not likely that driving it around town is a very wise thing to do, especially when you can't really outmaneuver other vehicles and outrun them or do something with these vehicles that are just handled so poorly. And the last ones that I don't recommend are these two guys right here, which is regular Gallivanter, which is the Gallivanter Baller LE, and you got the Gallivanter Baller LE LWB, which you can also, I believe, armor up. Is this the one you can armor up? No, I guess it's not. Is it the regular one? I don't even remember. Yeah, it's the regular one, isn't it? Oh, I don't know. I guess I'm doing something wrong here. But in any case, maybe the armored one's a different one. I could have sworn it was that one there, the LWB. Anyways, I can't find the armoring part up. But I've driven the regular ones around, and I've also had the armored ones, and they're spinning out of control type vehicles. They oversteer heavily. It's just easy to get killed in them because of especially the oversteering characteristics, and again they spin out a lot. You just basically kind of don't go anywhere. It takes forever for them to develop speed, and once they do, again every handling characteristic for them is pretty bad. So this is one of the ones that I don't recommend you buy. I think you can get one of these other ones in armored versions, of these ones right here, and you do a lot better. Or you can even get the Cognoscetis, which aren't much better either. They're slightly better than the Ballers, but not by a lot. So these are the bottom. And I mean, these would be the best handling. These two, then would go the Cognoscetis, and these would be at the bottom of the list. So why get the ones at the bottom of the list when you got the other choices? Unless you like SUVs. But if you get the armored version again, why spend it on these ones when you can get the other armored ones? They handle better and they're about the same price. So really not worth spending the money. All right, and so now moving on to, let's see, the vehicles that I do recommend. I did already mention, no, I didn't mention it. Okay, so here we go. The vehicle I do recommend highly would be the Ocelot. This thing right here is super fast, it handles well, it's super driver friendly. It just came out, very expensive, but it's kind of worth the money. Another one that I also recommend, and this is if you're into racing. I mean, if you're into racing, you're gonna need a car like this to win, supercar races. I know there's other ones out there that other people might be really good with, but to me, these are probably the best ones for anybody all around, regardless of how good you are. The Davachi Wagner, I think is freaking fantastic. This thing is so fast, it handles so well. These two really are really alike as far as the handling abilities and the speed. Very, very, very good cars. Another car that I would recommend on these ones would be, let's see, where's the other one right here? I'm gonna go with another. Instead of jumping over to the off-road car, I'm actually gonna jump up to this guy here. Where is it? The Pegassi Reaper. There it is. This right here is kind of a hidden little gem. It doesn't look kind of like these guys that look all, a little bit more wicked. But this guy right here looks a little bit more of a sleeper, but this thing is fast. This thing is fast and it handles well. And I don't really drive it around, but the reason I realize how good it is because I raced against it several times. I raced against people with these things, and boy, I'm just like, how can a Reaper be keeping up with my Wagner or with my Ocelot? Even with my Rowdy X80 Proto, how can it be keeping up? It's just the thing is fast. The thing is fast and the thing handles really well. So, I mean, the Pegassi Reaper is another vehicle that I highly recommend you own. But aside from those three supercars, I wouldn't really say anything is going to be, something you must own. I do have some honorable mentions though, but at this point in time, I'm just kind of pointing out the ones that I do recommend. And so there's only one more I'd recommend after that, and it's not a supercar, but it's this guy right here, the Coil Brawler. If you like to go off-roading and off-roading is kind of your thing, like it is with me, I love to off-road. Then this vehicle right here is actually a good money spent for the price. It really can do a lot. It's not the best off-road vehicle, but it is certainly not the worst, and it is certainly really cool looking, and it does the job well. So I really recommend the Coil Brawler if your thing is to go off-roading, and the thing is a freaking cool vehicle, and it's not that expensive compared to some other things out there. But there are cheaper things, believe it or not, that are better than this vehicle, and I'll talk about them in a second because they're not at this website. And now for honorable mentions. The vehicles that I'm gonna give an honorable mention to are going to be this guy right here, the Hakichu Drag. Super fast bike, really cool bike. Um, and the regular Hakichu as well, which is not here, but we'll talk about it later because it's in a different website. But the Hakichu Drag, this thing's a monster. It's a very fast bike. If you're good with bikes, this is one of the best, fastest bikes you can get in the game. The only thing about it, of course, it doesn't steer very well because it's got that extended swing arm, and it kind of makes it not the greatest curves bike, for curving, but it is pretty fast. And if you know how to handle it really well, you can still do pretty well on the curves. Another one that I highly recommend as an option that you could also contemplate is this guy right here, the X80 Proto, one of the fastest cars in the game. I'm not sure if it is the fastest still or not, probably isn't, but if it isn't the fastest, it won't be by much. And the thing is beautiful. The only thing I have to say about it takes a while getting used to it, and it's kind of difficult to control the car. It doesn't handle the greatest, but if you manage to get good at it, which I've managed to get decent at it, but not really good at it. But I've seen people that are very good with this car, and they're nearly unstoppable. Those things are just so fast. They come out on top at the end of the day, they'll come out on top if the guy knows how to drive the vehicle, because those things are just phenomenally fast. So I'd recommend it for that reason. If you like to race and you need a very fast car, then this is one of the ones you can definitely consider. It's a super great vehicle. And so let's see. Oh, by the way, I didn't. I may have said that this was a must-have, but this is only a one of the honorable mentions. By the way, the Cola Brawler. It's not a must-have. If I said that wrong earlier, I apologize. And so, anyways, the next vehicle I'd also recommend would be. Let's see, where are you at? Oh, I missed something here. Hold on. Oh yeah, I sure did. This is another must-have. I already jumped to the. I jumped to the whatchamacallit, the honorable mentions, and I didn't even finish the must-haves. This is a must-have, the Nagasaki Shotaro. Why? Because there's no other bike like it. It's very futuristic, very cool. Everybody wants to have one, and the thing handles actually really well. It's very fast, handles not the best bike handling in the world, but it is close to it. And it's also a bike that can actually go off-roading, believe it or not. This thing can go off-road and climb like freaking cliffs and things that are just weird that other bikes really that only the Hakuchus can kind of do that. But this guy does it too, and it does it pretty well, and maybe a little smoother. So this is a must-have vehicle, the Shotaro. So anyways, moving on back to the honorable mentions, which I had hopped to a little bit earlier than I needed to prematurely. So let me look up where I left off. Okay, back on again to the ones I highly recommend. The honorable mentions would be this guy right here is another one, the Principe Electro. If you guys have done some of the heists that lead up to the Pacific Standard, you'll know that this bike right here, it's a pretty cool bike. It handles really, really well. It's pretty fast, and it has that little kind of like I don't know what you call that sort of turbo. It's not really a turbo boost. It's more like a quantum zoom. I don't know what that is, but it's pretty fast and it's pretty neat, getting that little effect. So it's one of the ones that I can honorably mention. It's a fun bike to have. The other ones I can mention honorably would be this guy right here, the Progen T20. Before all these new evolution of supercars started coming out, this was the bad boy, to own. It was the most expensive vehicle. It was the fastest for a while, It's not anymore, but it's still a very good car all around, and I still have to give it an honorable mention. Along with this guy right here, the Pegassi Osiris. The Pegassi Osiris is another vehicle that's much like the Progen T20. It handles great, it is fast, and you can do really well in it if you know how to use the vehicle. So it's another honorable mention. The other honorable mention is going to go to this guy here, which everybody kind of knows. There he is right here, the Zentorno. This is one of the most utilized cars during the time that it was kind of, it had just that little amount of competition, and we didn't have the X80 Proto and the Wagner and all this stuff. This was the guy. This is the guy you'd see winning the races because of its, just overall balance of power and maneuverability. The car is fantastic, and it's one of the most gorgeous cars in the game. And you've seen it in a lot of, free or not one of those little missions, where you got like snipers versus Centornos and all that stuff. It's just a fun car to have. One of the coolest cars in the game. I definitely recommend you own one. Another one that I give it an honorable mention to would be where is this guy at? There he is, right here. It was right underneath. You didn't even see it. The Gran Turismo R. I give this guy an honorable mention because it isn't the fastest, but it is super great handling. And if you're looking for your first supercar, this is kind of it right here because it's actually pretty attainable. It's only $500,000, and you're getting a really cool looking car for, without having to spend $1 million, just half of that money. And it's pretty fast. I mean, it does everything that a supercar should do. It doesn't really compete with most of the other supercars, but I give it an honorable mention just because it is a good basic first, starters supercar, just to kind of get used to what driving GTA is and what driving a supercar is for an affordable price. So I'd definitely recommend it. If you haven't bought your first supercar, then this is where you should start. And now the last honorable mention is going to be this guy here, the True Fade C-Type. This is a classic that doesn't look like it's really much, but the car, it's kind of, if you notice, it's kind of like the Batmobile. It's got that long front end, really kind of no back to it, very, very short back. Most cars that do this, they have a tendency to oversteer and handle not quite great. That's not the case with this guy. This guy handles great all around. It is super fast. It is super cool looking. It is a beast of a car. When I first came out, I was like, another slow classic car that doesn't handle well. Until I drove one, I was like, wait a minute, that's not the case. So I bought one. Have not regretted it one bit. So if you like a classic car that actually does handle well, that actually does have traction, that actually steers nicely, and doesn't spin out the wheels, this is the car right here. This is the best, fastest, meanest classic car out there. It is expensive though, obviously, almost $1 million, but I can see why, because it's definitely worth it. It's a great vehicle. I really recommend this as as an honorable mention and something you should consider owning. And moving along to the last thing. It's taken a while. We're going into basically just over an hour on this video. And I'm sorry that I'm taking so long, but I'm being kind of, real prompt and thorough at the same time. But obviously it doesn't go by so fast to try to do a video like this. But I hope that this helps someone understand, why I have some options for some vehicles as being must-owns, and others I'm just saying to dump. And others, are honorably mentioned for a reason. And again, if you have your own favorites, your own comments about this, please let me know. I respect your opinions, whatever they might be. If you disagree with something, that's definitely bound to happen, and definitely will happen, because some people are the exception on some vehicles. Some of you guys out there are rocking vehicles that I don't dislike and making it work really well for you. And some of you guys, I'm sure have taken some of the vehicles that I say must have, and you go out there and you absolutely do really bad with the vehicle, and unlike me. So everybody's different. But these are my personal recommendations and what's worked for me, and that's what I'm putting out in this video. And so now, for the last bit, these are the vehicles I don't recommend you get from the Southern San Andreas Super Autos. And we're going to start with the Retinue. This is one of the newer cars. It's very expensive. It fixes up into this kind of goofy looking semi-neat car that really doesn't do much. It doesn't really handle that well. It really kind of spins around too much. It looks kind of a little bit clowny in my opinion. And I think it's definitely a car I thought about getting it until I drove it, and it's not worth the price. And I don't recommend you get it. I think it's one of the cars you shouldn't own in GTA. Um, I'm not gonna get into this minivan because this minivan, believe it or not, it's actually kind of okay. And that's what, but I'm not even gonna mention it. But that's why I don't mention it because it's not great and it's not horrible. Another set of vehicles you should definitely not own are Fagios. If you're not doing a one of those car duplications, which is what sometimes they get used for, then you really shouldn't have a Fagio in your garage. If you have a Fagio, then I don't know. Maybe it's because the name is attractive to you for some reason, because that's the only reason I can think of. Because they're called Fagios, and I think they're called Fagios for a reason. Uh, yeah, I think the name is self-explanatory, and definitely would say, why would you own one? You know, what are you gonna do in one of these? What's your plan? Are you trying to just, say, hey, please come kill me? I'm in a Fagio. That's when I see somebody on a Fagio, that's all I see is a big sign that says, hey man, I'm on a Fagio. Could you please kill me? And I happily oblige. So anyway, I'm not gonna get any more into the Fagio, but definitely shouldn't own a Fagio, man. Uh, yeah, just based on the name itself, you shouldn't own a Fagio. And so the next one, let me find it. Where are you, buddy? This guy right here, the Brioso. I own the Brioso. Why? It's kind of one of these little, I guess, little cute cars. It's kind of a little chick car. And why did I get it? At first I was like, man, I got it. I didn't even want to be seen driving around in it because to me, it's kind of a chick car, you know? I was like, yeah, I don't. So I would kind of do it in sessions by myself or when people weren't looking because I was embarrassed to see in this thing. But you know why I bought it? I bought it out of curiosity. I said, well, it's kind of like dressed up as a kind of a race car, so let's see what it can do. I wanted to know firsthand, and I didn't know anybody else that owned one, so I was like, okay, I'm gonna get it. I want to see what it does. And it was disappointing. So I'm glad it was disappointing because like that I didn't have to keep it and be embarrassed to having the car. Because it's embarrassing to have the car just based on the fact that it's kind of a chicky little cute car. But on top of that, it's not a very great car. It spins around, loses control very easily. It doesn't have anything that it does exceptionally well. It's not. Some people say it's great at drifting. I think it's crap at drifting. And so I was so glad when I was able to sell it and get rid of it. I don't recommend the car for anything. Just not worth it. Now, the other one I don't recommend, believe it or not, is this gorgeous thing. It's a very beautiful car. But I think off-road, I've seen some people that rock this thing and they do very good with it. And I've been beaten in races with this thing, which makes me wonder just exactly what they figure out that I haven't. Because when I drive this thing, it just bounces all out of control. It goes off the main road, where you want to stay on very easily. It just bounces out of control. It doesn't go over things that you would expect it should go over. It gets stuck on things that you're like, what? I mean, look at the clearance on this thing. But anyway, I think it's not a very good vehicle. I think it's very expensive. You can get something cheaper. I'm gonna get into the what's cheaper. I remember I was talking about that the Baltic. No. What's it called? The Brawler. Sorry, the Brawler. That other off-road vehicle that was in the what is it called? The Legendary Motorsports. Very expensive. It's like $800,000. I told you there was something cheaper. Well, this one right here, there's still something cheaper, way better than this, and I'll get into that as well. So I don't recommend this vehicle anyway. I do not recommend it at all. And the last one I don't recommend. Now I don't know all these vehicles. I haven't driven every one, so I don't know which other ones drive crappy. Man, maybe you guys have some other ones you guys want to add to this. I mean, I'm looking like, for example, this Dinka thing looks like it probably. Why would you own that? But I've never driven one, so I don't know. I haven't driven everything in the game. Like this Paradise, actually, believe it or not, it's a good van, dude. It drives fast, so that's why I don't mention this van on this thing. This is a good van. Anyways, the other one I don't recommend are the Kalahari. There's a Kalahari topless right here, and the regular Kalahari. They got these little skinny tires. They're not very off-road capable. I don't know what they're doing in the game really as far as off-road vehicles, but this should be more like a little girly vehicle too. And yeah, I don't recommend the vehicles. They're not very capable. They're not very fast. They're not very anything. They look kind of cool, because they look kind of like what you would see in a safari in Africa, but it doesn't work out that way for these vehicles. They're pretty poorly made. And so now on to the ones I would recommend. Let's move along to that. That's the end of the list of the cars or vehicles that I say stay away from. And now let's go to the ones I do recommend, which is going to be, where is it? There it is, right there. It's on sale. I should have bought it on sale. I got two of these guys, and that's the Sanctus. The reason I recommend it is because it's a very unique bike. No other bike has that kind of body style where you're kind of riding a skeleton. No other bike has those red eyes. This bike, I understand, may be going away forever. And those are the only reasons I recommend it, because it's a very unique, possibly very limited production bike now at this point in time. I own it, but I have to say that in riding it, once you get going, it's not that bad. But getting started, it spins around a lot, and that is the one thing that really pisses me off about this bike. But there is a way to get around that, is when you press the accelerator, don't just press it all the way down and gun it. Just kind of like trigger it a little bit, feather it in or trigger it like on off, on off, on off, and off a little bit, and then get going. But if you just gun the trigger down, for acceleration and go, you're gonna be just spinning out of control, kind of like those other cars I despise that were on the legendary motors. But yeah, aside from that though, that's what gives this vehicle sort of a must-have thing, is that it is a very unique vehicle, and it may be going away forever. The other vehicle, and now getting on to the one I was trying to get to, the Vapid Trophy Truck. Now this, in my opinion, is the best racing off-road vehicle in the game. For only this price, you get it cheaper than you can get this thing right here, the Desert Raid, and you get it cheaper than you can get the Coil Brawler. So that's a lot of savings for something that is far faster, far better, far more capable of getting over obstacles. Far better than this for sure. Far better than this guy, and for less. So yeah, this to me is the best off-road vehicle in the game. Period. There are vehicles that are maybe more capable of climbing, like the oh my gosh, the APC, but the APC you can't get that in a race. But the APC can climb better than this, and it can go in the water. But this is faster, and you need it for a race. And there are other vehicles, I guess, that have a little bit more brunt in pushing other vehicles out of the way, like the Insurgent. But this thing will beat an Insurgent big time in a race if you know how to race in an off-road race, because it's faster. And like I said, it has better clearance than the Insurgent, better clearance than the Desert Raid. And this is one of the other ones that, believe it or not, actually has about equal or better clearance than this guy here, is this Vapid Contender. But the Vapid Contender doesn't have the speed compared to the Trophy Truck. So to me, if you like off-road racing, this is an absolute must-have vehicle for the game, because this is probably the best all-around off-road vehicle for racing that you can have than anything else. This vehicle, if you know how to use it and you know how to drive off-road, is basically unbeatable. So moving along, these are two vehicles that I put on my list of must-haves, not because I own them, and not because I really truly like them. I don't own them, and that kind of tells you that I don't really particularly like them. But I do have them for a reason. I do have them, but I do recommend them as must-haves for a reason. And that is that, right now, first of all, they're on sale. Second of all, they're very rare, that they only come out Halloweens. And also, they may be going away forever, just like the LLC Sanctus. The Albany Frankenstrange and the Albany Lurcher, we may not see them again anymore at all, ever again in any Halloween update. So if that does happen, then this makes it worth owning if you really, are into these vehicles. For me, they're just not for me. So I have not bought them, and I don't plan on buying them, because I've driven them, and this thing doesn't handle that well, and this thing handles pretty well, but it's a station wagon. So I don't know. It's just not for me, I guess. But I would recommend that if you want to get them before they possibly go away forever, then you should definitely get them. Now, I'm going to go to what I consider an absolute 100% or million% actually must-own vehicle. And to me, this is my favorite car in the entire GTA Online game. And it's been my favorite car since I got it. And it will continue to be my favorite car unless they make something better than this car. And that's the Karen Kuruma, the armored version, not the regular. I owned the regular, it really didn't like it. I'm not getting to that one. I don't hate it, but I didn't really like it. But this car right here is an absolute, hands down, must-own vehicle. It is perhaps the vehicle you should own most in the game and should never get rid of, and should own before any other vehicle. Because why? First of all, it's a badass car. It's a beast. It drives fast. It handles pretty well if you learn how to use it even, and it's one of the best drifting cars in the game. It rams other cars out of the way. Yeah, almost as good as an Insurgent or another heavy vehicle does. and it's so difficult to be killing this vehicle with bullets. Now with a rocket or a grenade or anything, yeah, they'll blow you up in one, but you don't really want to use it against people that often. It's mostly for missions. That's what you really need it for. That's where it really pays off. Any heist, any mission where you're sent to a location where you fight a lot of armed personnel, and where choppers are coming after you, as long as they're not rocketed, and as long as the people shooting at you are not shooting really rockets at you, but mostly just guns, machine guns, or helicopters with machine guns, miniguns, whatever, this vehicle right here will keep you alive and make you pass the heist or the mission very, very easily. The car allows you to take crew in there with you, and they can shoot out the windows, and shoot at people, defend yourselves. And the car is also very good against players as long as they're not, as long as you're able to kill them before they blow you up. The car is fantastic. To me, it's the best car around, especially like I said, for completing missions, making money, getting rank. That's what this vehicle is really mainly for, in my opinion, and it's fantastic. It's a money-making car, and a success. It's a car that guarantees success in many missions, and so just that to me makes it the best car in the game overall that you should own. Especially look at the price. I mean, you cannot beat that for a car like the Kuruma. So, best car in game, my opinion. Absolutely best car in game. And so on to the next vehicles I'd recommend. They would be these guys right here. There they are right here. The Debauchi Massacro race car and the Dinka Jester race car. It took me a long time to buy these cars, and it's one time I bought them because I had extra money to just kind of throw away. I was like, I got that money. They're not that expensive. They're not even $500,000 each. And I bought them for my second character. I didn't even buy them for my main character. Well, let me tell you, these are two sleeper cars that compete with just about any supercar in this game. And not only compete, but possibly beat it if you know how to drive it, especially the Massacro. The Massacro is better than the Dinky Jester car by far, in my opinion, in handling and in speed. But they're both pretty cool, and if you're good at the Dinky Jester, you can do pretty well with it too. But if you don't have a lot of money and you want a super car, basically for super cheap, so this is what these are. They're kind of a super car that's just really cheap. It doesn't say supercar anywhere on there, but it does say race car. And believe me, when it says it's a race car, it says it's a race car for a reason, because they are race cars, and they're very fast and they run just like a supercar. Maybe not as fast as some other supercars, but they definitely handle better than a lot of supercars, and that's where they make up for it. So if you just want to have a basically super cheap supercar that does super great at racing, then this is where you can start as well, man. You don't have to go get that Turismo R. These cars right here will kick a Turismo R's ass, any day of the week. They're fantastic cars. So I definitely recommend you get one, especially if you're new to the game and you need a supercar to race with. You don't need a supercar, you can get one of these two guys. And so the last thing that I'm going to go into would be this guy right here, if I can find him. Where are you, buddy? It is my last recommendation for this particular website. And obviously my last recommendation of all the vehicles, since I'm already done with every other recommendation for today. This would be the last one, if I can find it. Is it really at the bottom? At the bottom? At the bottom of the bottom? There it is, yeah. And that's the Hakushu drag. The Hakushu, Raleigh, not the drag, the regular Hakushu. And this bike right here, you can't ever go wrong with this bike for that price. You're gonna kick almost every other bike's ass in cornering and speed, and this is just super cheap. And the bike does crazy things. You can go into ramps and ramp the hell out of it and do cool tricks. You can do flips off of just little embankments on the ground. This thing is crazy cool. What a cool bike for such a cheap price. That is super fast. You can go bike racing and win bike races. Even with the new bikes, you can still go win bike races with this thing, even to this very day. So that's how good of a bike this thing is. And it's a must-have bike, especially when you consider the price. So that's my last recommendation. And now on to the last thing, which is the honorable mentions for this website. And after that, we're finally done with this video, which is already on an hour and 20 minutes. Woo! Longest video I've ever done. So the ones I'd recommend as honorable mentions, because they're super cool, we're going to start with the guy that's way at the top up here. I gotta go way back up to the top again, man. That was a long travel down just to get to that Hakuchu. But where are you, my friend? There it is, the Western Nightblade. $100,000, very good bike. Rides fast, handles super well. It looks super cool, man. Once you fix this bike up, it is one of the best looking bikes in the game. So you get a pretty good bang for your buck. It isn't the fastest, and it isn't the perhaps maybe overall the coolest if you want to think of it that way. But for the price, man, it doesn't get cooler and faster really for that price. It just that is a very good bike for that price. It's almost like it's being like you're taking money from them, like you're stealing from them instead of them stealing from you, like it's usually the case. So I highly recommend the bike, and it's definitely an honorable mention. Another honorable mention is going to be the Obe Omnis and also the Lampadari Tropos Rally. These two are very cool cars that handle very well, that do pretty decent in off-roading. They don't beat the trophy truck and some other vehicles like the Colt Brawler, but they're really fun to drive, and they're really good looking. And once you mod them up all the way, they got some good capabilities. So I'd recommend these guys for sure. That's something that you can consider owning, or should consider owning. The other vehicle I recommend is going to be the Vapid Contender. Like I said, this vehicle is an excellent off-road vehicle. They got another truck that's really big. There it is. Where is it? Where's that other truck? Not in it. Right here. The Guardian. That one's not a good truck, man. It's more expensive, and it's not really that good off-road, and it flips over easy, and it's kind of a pain in the butt. And look at this guy right here. $250,000 for the Contender versus $375 for a lesser truck. I mean the Contender. I mean not the Contender. This thing right here. The what you call it again? The Guardian. It looks really cool though. I have to say, it looks cooler than the Contender, but it doesn't do anything else better than the Contender other than look good. The Contender is actually a really good contender for off-road racing, so I'd really recommend you can consider this vehicle as one of your off-road choices if you want to buy this thing. It is a really neat off-road vehicle, very capable and very cheap. It won't beat the trophy truck with a good driver, but if you just if you're kind of pretty good yourself, you actually can do it. It can happen. So it's something you can win big races with without spending all the money. And another one that I recommend is the one that was just down here, the Bravado Rompo Custom. When I first bought this, I don't really like vans, but I bought this because it looked really manly, and it looked really kind of black. It looks kind of like, I don't know, man. It looks rough. It doesn't look like your typical little van. So I was like, I'll get it. I went off-roading with it. It was decent. It didn't handle super great. It wasn't super fast. And after a while, you know what? I was thinking I should sell it. I didn't really see the purpose in keeping it. And it was really cheap, so I didn't really care about spending the money on it. But once you do all the mods on it, it turns out to be a little bit more expensive. But at that point in time, I was about to sell it when one of my friends actually tells me, "You're going to sell it?" He goes, "Yeah." I was like, "There's nothing really special about it." He goes, "It's got bulletproof windows." I was like, "What?" And sure enough, for $130,000, you're getting basically this almost the same thing as if you're getting one of those Cognoscetis or those LWE LB or whatever those Gallimanter Baller armored vehicles. You're sort of getting almost the same thing, except a lot cheaper. So it's kind of neat. The thing is very off-road capable. It drives faster than any of those vehicles. And it's got bullet-resistant windows. Not bulletproof, but bullet-resistant windows. So definitely something that you can honorably mention now, because it's got off-road capability, decent speed, and bullet-resistant windows. So yeah, I kept the vehicle after that. After I found out about the windows, definitely worth it. And I'd recommend you get one too if if this is what you're into as well, and if you think this is a good investment for you. But I definitely think it's an honorable mention vehicle for sure. Very good vehicle. And let's see. And almost to the end here. Another one that's going to get an honorable mention is the Class Drift Tampa. And the reason it's going to get that is because it's just a neat vehicle, man. It's very fast. It handles really well. And it drifts really quite uniquely to other cars if you don't change the tires out. If you go change the tires out on this, it handles entirely different. But it comes with these really cool ultra wide slicks that really permit you to kind of spin around and glide, and maybe it over drifts, I find it difficult to drift with it because it overdrifts. It just wants to go. It wants to sink too much into a curve. But it's a really neat vehicle and it looks really really cool. So it's one again. It's kind of expensive, I know, and when I bought it, I was like, it hurt me a little bit to spend that much money on a car that's really not technically not very practical, but it's fun enough to where it was kind of I guess sort of worth my expense, but not completely. But I still recommend it as an honorable mention. We got two more vehicles to get to the end of this thing, so I'm gonna go down to one of these guys down here, which is the Bifta. The Bifta doesn't look like much. It's a dune buggy, but off-roading actually, you're not gonna win any races with it. If you're going against some of the things like a trophy truck or an insurgent, perhaps. But it is quite capable. It does it slower than some of the other vehicles, but it does it, but it handles a little bit better than some of the other vehicles. So what you lose in speed, you kind of gain in handling, and it makes it kind of a fun drive when you're off-roading. So it's an honorable mention because of that. It's just a fun vehicle to drive off-road. Maybe not to race, maybe just to have fun, but it's very fun. And the last one is this guy here, believe it or not, and this is my surprise or my kind of shocking recommendation because I would never expect to be making a recommendation on this little vehicle here, especially when I just said that that other little girl, that other little car was girly, and that I was kind of embarrassed to drive around in it. What was that other one called? I forgot. Let me look it up real quick. It's up here. This little car. I was so embarrassed to get this, the Brioso. I was so embarrassed to be seen in this car, and I wouldn't want to own a car like that. But yet, I still probably wouldn't own this car, but I have to recommend it. I mean, what's fair is fair. Simple fact is, I actually got into one of these vehicles the other day because I was being chased down by the cops, and my vehicle got blown up, and so I was like, I gotta escape, you know. And so I took the first car I found, and I got into one of these. First time I actually get into one. I've seen them before, but I avoid little cars. If I can steal a car and I see a nicer car nearby, I'll just take the nicer car. But there was nothing else really around, so I took it. What can I say? I was very shocked when I drove it because this little car gets up and goes. It handles like a little monster. It is quite an unexpected thing to have a car like this and be like, how am I doing this in this little car? Why is it traveling that fast? Why is it handling this well? You know, I couldn't believe it. And I just barely found this out. I found this out about a week ago that this car was, maybe less than a week ago, that this car was that freaking good. And so I have to put it into my, honorable mentions now because the simple fact, again, whether I like the vehicle or not, or whether I intend to own it or not, doesn't take away from the fact that the vehicle has capabilities. And it does. I don't know what it would. I can only imagine. I don't know if it gets better once you mod it up and and put all the modifications on it, or if it gets worse. But just plain stock as it was, I was very surprised that it was as good as it was. And so, yeah, I have to say, that vehicle is quite a little car for what it is. It does something really well. It does have a little bit of a tendency to oversteer, but it's not that bad. As bad as the other one that I was mentioning earlier, which is the Brioso. The Brioso will oversteer on you so much easier. But definitely that's kind of all the vehicles, I guess, that I've had on my list. But you know what? There is one more, and that's why I'm taking a little extra time. I forgot to mention one thing, and maybe I won't find it here, but maybe I will. And this is something that just came to mind right now because of when I steal cars out on the street sometimes. Right now that I mentioned that I stole that particular car, I forgot about one other car, and it's a Karen, and it's the Astro. Okay, I almost forgot to mention this guy here. I need to put him here. The Astrope. Yeah, I almost forgot about this guy here. The Karen Astrope. Why does that guy get even mentioned? Well, I'll tell you why. If you ever get into any car when you steal a car in the game, there are some other cars that are pretty neat too. Like the what's that car that everybody's making into a Benny's car? The very first Benny's cars that came out, in fact, as far as like little race cars, not the lowrider ones. I forgot what it's called, but it's a little bitty squared car. It kind of looks like this. I own it and I don't remember the name of it. But that car, It's one of the cars that you can steal on the street, and it drives fantastic, just stock. And this is another one actually. These ones that look kind of like a Crown Victoria. There's two of them. One has a double exhaust, and the other one has a single exhaust. I think this is the one with the single exhaust. Those two, if you steal one on the street and you take off, you're gonna notice that those things handle well in the rain. They handle well under any condition. I mean, they're just very good handling cars. And so is that other one that I'm telling you that I can't remember what it is, but it turns into a Benny's car, and I just cannot find it here. It might not be here. But this guy here, the Karen Astrope, I've told a couple of my friends this. No, not more than a couple. I've told several of my friends this before, and I'll continue to say it. This is the best driving car in all of GTA. Stock that you just find in the street. I'm not saying like out of special cars or whatever, but stock car you find in the street, nothing drives better than the Karen Astrope. You should go try it, I guess. It doesn't matter if it's raining, if somebody's chasing you around, if you got cops behind you, if you flat tires on it. This thing just keeps going and keeps handling well, no matter almost what you do to it. It could be smoking, about to blow up, and it still keeps driving great. The car is absolutely phenomenal. I personally have made a couple of these my own and put them in my garages and kept them as personal cars because they drive so well and they're so fast, just stock. And I just got rid of them because eventually I ran out of space in my garages before they came out with the 60 car garage, and I had to sell something to buy some of the cars I wanted. And since these are cars off the street, they're kind of expendable. But I have to say again, if you've never really truly taken out a Karen Astro for a drive, for a nice spirited drive, you should definitely try it. Because again, in my humble opinion, this is the best stock driving car in the entire GTA game. That's just off the street. So, anyways, that's my video. I've gone into right here 1 hour 30 minutes, and so again, sorry I made such a long video. I don't know if any of you will watch all of this entire video. It's so long, but I made it with the intention again of putting out a list of vehicles that I think are great, some others that are pretty good, and some others that are just crap, and just kind of inform you a little bit about what the vehicles kind of do and don't do and why I'm making these recommendations, and hopefully that'll help somebody want to be out there, make the decisions. And if you have any questions, again, any comments, please post your comments, post your questions, and I'll be more than happy to either answer them or just review whatever your opinions are. So thank you, and that'll be all. It's Jamal 69 Jackson going off the air.